everybody, welcome to another episode of Off the Rails. This week's episode, what I liked about him. I'm gonna go through the top pickings of last week's album, Negative Space, specifically the top 3 winners as chosen by myself and the Whittling Committee, and some of the top contenders, all of which I believe did make ultimately the 52 Picks album. Why these, what we saw in them, why especially the top 3 photos, which were this one and this one and this one, I think. No, this one, no, wait, no, this one, these 3. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was these 3. Specifically these 3, and some of these top contenders were like unanimously voted. Unanimous is not the right word. I like using that word incorrectly and ubiquitously. By the committee, many votes. Some weeks the committee just kind of spreads their votes thin, and it's difficult to choose that top 3. Some weeks there's just standouts that resonate with everyone, and these specifically were just voted by almost every single committee member. So what is it? What is it about them? Are they geometrically perfect? Is it just the content? Are they just unique? Is it the fact that they just nailed Negative Space? I'm just going to go through, at least to my eye, and also backed up a little bit by geometric composition, which I don't think we should rely on, but it's good to see that it generally does fit in. I mean, the reason we have these geometric compositional rules is because those kind of are proven to look good, right? To look good to our brains, which is what makes a good photo generally. Let's open Photoshop and go through them. Trista, what an amazing photo. And one of the reasons why this didn't make top 3 is because Trista actually just won a top 3 honor in recent weeks for a very similar photo of a swimming pool vibe. There's a lot that goes into choosing a top 3, which I went into in a previous episode of Off the Rails, and it's not always just the best 3. There's a lot of other things to consider, like, did this person win a top 3 honors recently? Is this content the same? Like if there were 2 swimming pool photos next to each other, so we'd probably choose one of those 2 to be a top 3 photo as an example. So this is just an example of, I think, an excellent photo, but was taken out of at least just the top 3 honors. This was in the 52 Picks album. Because she had won the honor so recently. But this is just such an amazing photo on so many levels. First of all, okay, to me, and then we'll get into maybe more traditional dynamics of photography, if you will. To me, man, it's just such an elegant, it's the shape, really. I mean, this is what gets me. It's just such an elegant shape by I assume it's your daughter. It's just really lovely shot, really nice moment. And as the brief tells us, right, Negative Space, it really adds so much to the subject and where our eyes look, specifically to, clear the clutter, if you will. There's nothing else to look at. We're not distracted by all of these different elements in the frame because of this empty space. But what's important, and my Photoshop is slowing down because I'm doing the screencast, but what's important also is that this subject here is looking into the space, right? It's looking into the frame. So we can kind of visualize as the viewer where the subject is going to go, especially because we see all of this negative space, which makes it a lot more comfortable to look at as the viewer. But a really beautiful, elegant angle. And I also like the light and dark play where we have this light contrasting with the darker frame. We're going to come back to all of these in a more compositional setting, but let's first go through these and I'll just kind of share my own thoughts on it of why I think they're standouts. Claudia, I really love this photo more so than other committee members. What do we need to show? Like, Do we need to show a whole apple so that you could see it's an apple? Or is just a tiny sliver of light and the subject placed in the corner enough that you can clearly see it's an apple? Delicious, low-key, pun intended, photo where we have mostly dark, really just embedded into the shadows here, where it bleeds into the shadow side of the apple and the background. And I think the water droplets are just, the cherry on top, the apple on top. It's just a nice, dark, rich photo where we're just showing what we want to show, or I should say Claudia just showed what she wanted to show. And I think that's a really good learning, a really good example of, you don't need so much clutter. You don't need to show so much. Whittling photos and editing photos. Let's say you shot, 100 photos that day, trying to find the 20 best and then the 10 best and then the 5 best, getting down to the 1 is an editing process that is super valuable. And it also comes into play in the frame itself. Like what, maybe this apple was on a table and it was, there's other things on the table and it's like, okay, wait, no, let's clear it. Maybe it's just 2 things on the table. Maybe we don't have to show the table at all. Maybe we don't even have to show the apple at all. Like keep whittling down, keep editing down and paring down that idea to just show what you need to show. It makes for a more dramatic, unique image. I really love this shot. Chalet here, this is also my kind of shot. And it's the negative space that brings this home, right? This would have been a fine photo if you had gotten these folks here. Let's see, like this. We zoomed in. I'm going to ignore the pixelation, but looking down into the ocean, it's still like beautiful color palette and balance and symmetry, and you get the idea. But we really see the expanse of what they're potentially looking at in front of them. And it's just a beautiful palette and color tone here of the blues. The sky's meeting the ocean, and it's just a lovely, sliver of a line on the bottom. Very extreme composition here that I think is a great example of extreme negative space to offer a different viewpoint, to show this expanse of a scene where she really could have just gotten in close. Jenny, this was maybe the cover photo or one of the top 3. This was my personal favorite. Just so much character and definitely a unique angle. I mean, that's what got me. But it's not just a unique angle. So fine, you flew up a drone and you shot straight down. And it's great that you have, a people shot also. But the placement of the lawnmower, that's what did it for me. Just that diagonal placement where it's coming out of the corner, kind of creating a leading line. And the fact, just the attention to detail where you're lying down, the dress matches the lawnmower, the shoes are off. There's just so much character. This frame is just bleeding so much character, which makes for a good story ultimately, right? That's what we're going for, but totally unique and a real attention to detail here, even though you were trying to pull off something that you didn't quite pull off, as you wrote in the caption, because you wanted to show like half mode lawn, and I still can't even tell where that line is. And I agree, that would have been a really strong story if we were able to see like half the lawn mode, and then you took a break. But we don't even need to see it because the lines are just so beautiful here, and the viewpoint, looking straight down, just a very unique bird's eye. And Layla, maybe this was the cover. Maybe I should have looked at what the top 3 were. It doesn't matter really what the top 3 were, because these all could have been top 3 on any given week, I think. But this one also, if it wasn't the cover, then it was definitely the top 3, and it was definitely one of the most voted by the committee. Oh man, there's so much going on here. First of all, just story. Okay, like, I don't even know if she intended on her daughter holding the mask. In Layla's caption, it seemed to be a very real moment where she asked her daughter, she saw the fence and she asked her daughter to sit down. The daughter was like over it, was probably, wearing the mask, took it off for the photo. It's everything for us though, right? As viewers looking at this in this time, it's just the fatigue of wearing a mask outside on a hot day. And this girl just nails it, just the way she's sitting, elbows on the knees, It's just a beautiful story. And then, I mean, lines, right? Lines for days. We got so many beautiful lines that are working here. I especially love the triangle that she and her pose is creating. And all these horizontal lines, I think, are just really make for a beautiful layered look. Not to mention, obviously, all of these horizontal lines of the fence, which is, I think, what Layla, what caught her attention in the first place. But to me, that's like the extra credit. If this was just a yellow wall or a blue wall, I would have been sold anyways. The horizontal lines is just the apple on top, if you will. But of course, as for our brief, it's this negative space that really brings it home, because there could have been so much clutter everywhere. But because there is this, beautiful basic repetition going on in the background, our eyes aren't distracted by looking at this and that. And we're able to focus on the geometry and specifically the subject here so much more because of the negative space created by the framing. I also really like the color palette in this shot. Just muted yellows, just straight up muted yellows all across the board. And I think that works really well for your daughter's dress here. And finally, we have Jill's fascinating photo here. Just, again, really nice triangles. And there's a lot of triangles happening here because of the way you position your hands. We have your knee in a triangle. We have the other leg in a triangle. I have a whole chapter on triangles in my course. It really comes into play and is quite a fascinating geometric compositional observation. And really lovely lighting. You have two lights shining on either side of you from the back, which creates shadow in the middle and in the front, which creates this, framing. This there's a term for it that I'm blanking on, but this edge lighting that's happening, that's just completely framing the shapes that you're creating. And it's also it's showing, just what you want to show, and of course swathed in this beautiful negative space that's just completely black, which I think really makes for a lovely abstract frame. And finally, we had one more. Cindy, excuse me, and the coughing. So much story here. Taking negative space, both literally and figuratively, where, somebody hiding their face. Again, we see a triangle here. Boom, boom, boom. And just an excellent story. Now, I'm going to go through these one more time and just add a thirds overlay. I mean, there's a lot more going on, but I think it's just interesting when we see this geometry, these compositional tools come into play. And I'm not saying it needs to be rule of thirds, and I'm not saying it's why it makes a good photo, but I think when you take a well-balanced photo, it holds up. We'll start with this, for example, because I don't think Cindy was like, okay, I need to make this part of the rule of thirds. I think Cindy was just thinking, I need to place my subject directly in the middle. So it's symmetrical, and we have even negative space on either side. And because he's in the center, so everything is symmetrical, the arms are symmetrical, and it just really helps, towards the balance of the whole frame. Once we throw in our thirds, it just becomes more apparent, like, oh, of course, he's right in the center, and that really makes sense with the rule of thirds also being in this middle third portion. Okay, here less so, but one could make an argument that this is just really, well. I just love how she's looking into the frame, but well framed in this overlay as well, where we kind of see her just coming up against this second intersection here, the upper left, and just kind of touching it, and then looking into this center frame. Again, I'm not saying that this was all intentional, but it's nice to see it, that one of these rules is kind of backing up what we already intuitively thought and felt was a good composition. I think that's more my point. Boom, bottom third. That's it. That's all you need. Just this little quadrant here. Beautifully done. Here, almost almost symmetrical. We could see the horizon line is just off symmetry, I think, maybe, unless I did my overlay incorrectly, which is possible because I kind of did it by hand. But you could see just this beautiful symmetry happening here. And look at this. We have our beautiful subject here right on the line here and on the intersection point. And similar to the apple, we have just that bottom right quadrant for my favorite part, which is this crooked lawnmower. If the lawnmower was straight, I don't think, it would be cool, but just the attention to detail to put the lawnmower at an angle, it just does it for me. It's just beautiful lines. I can't really put into words why. Just to me, intuition, and maybe we can back it up with other geometric compositional rules like whatever those are called, the ones that the this and the that and the magical this and the magical that. I go into all those in my course. If you catch my tone, I'm not like such a fan of saying it has to be on this intersecting third and it has to be this. Maybe you do it. The classical paintings and things like that, it does back up these rules, right? The rules or the guidelines, as I call it, are there for a reason. But I don't think, you need to like bend over backwards to try and now compose with one of these overlays on your screen. I'd rather you kind of take it to heart and then have your intuition take over, right? When you're looking at the frame, just try and trust your gut. And hopefully that will fall into place for one of these guidelines. And look at this, beautiful. You can't nail a third any better than that, and that just makes this shot even more pretty. Jill, again, similar to Cindy's, we have subject directly in the center third, the middle third, which creates just a beautiful symmetry. And I think I covered all of them. So that's just a cursory look of why these photos really jump out at us. It's story, first and foremost. It's being unique, working with shapes, working with symmetry, and just trying to get a different angle, and trying to clear the clutter. We'll look back at these and just take a bird's eye for a moment. All of these shots, and especially because it's negative space, but I hold this true to challenges of all kinds. When you look at a photo and immediately see, oh, we didn't do the boat? Amber, I'm so sorry. Somehow you didn't make the cut. Amber, it's obvious, no? Geez, just a beautiful, seamless... what's the word? Genius to process in black and white, by the way, because the scene between the water and the fog and the distance, the background, that's just what makes this like such a beautiful abstract painting almost. And it's just negative space to the extreme. Just a beautiful shot here. And again, if you had this, would have been a great shot, but we see the expanse. And just a beautiful abstract. I just love that seamless look. But where was I? When we're looking at a photo and it's clear what we need to look at, what we're looking at, right? It's clear what the subject is, right? There's no distraction here. We're not thinking like, well, maybe this is the main subject. There's not in the wood. Like, it's very clear what the story is here. It's very clear what the subject is in all of these. And I think that's what makes a good photo in general. All right. Not always. Sometimes you want clutter. Sometimes that is the subject where everything's all over the place. But generally, when you clear the distraction, clear the clutter, right? And when the viewer looks at a photo and it's like, it's so obvious what we're looking at and what the subject is, I think that is what makes a good photo. And that's why these are just such good examples of creativity, story, and technique. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see y'all next week. That'll be it. Thanks for the continued support. And that'll be it for this episode. And I already said that'll be it, but I think I just kind of get nervous for these outros, and sometimes I say that'll be it a few times just as like a connector to try and get to that ending happy shooting. So yeah, that'll be it, and I'll see you all next week. Happy shooting.